Hey guys, I just wanted to do a short video regarding the Kenneka Jenkins case again, and I just want everybody to really think about this. And this is something that I learned when I was pursuing my criminal justice degree. So I know these policemen have also learned it along the way. But if you notice in the witness statements that the Rosemont Police Department released, they may have blacked out the names, which makes it that much more obvious. But everybody is saying the exact same thing. That everybody recalls her having one cup. Everybody recalls her drinking from the bottle. Even though there were all those people in the room, everybody remembers what Kenneka was doing, what Kenneka was saying, how she was acting. Does anybody else find that very strange? It sounds very rehearsed to me. But in school, we learned that when that happens, it's pretty fishy. So I pulled this article up. When witnesses agree 100%, they're probably wrong. No, I'm not saying they agree 100%, but it's all basically the same story. They're all sticking to the exact same narrative. And when people do that, it just draws suspicion, especially for a professional. I mean, we learned this. There's actually a class on this. So the title of this article is When Witnesses Agree 100%, They're Probably Wrong. Perfect agreement among witnesses is so unlikely that it should be considered a red flag. And that's what I'm saying. That should have immediately drawn a red flag. Sorry, I have a cat that's... Every time I get on here to speak, she comes in here and wants to make some racket. It says, let's face it, there's something inherently fishy about a panel of witnesses who each recall the exact same series of events. Humans are imperfect. We see things differently, forget minor details, and recount stories in odd orders. So when witnesses' accounts don't differ by a healthy margin, it's actually a sign something might be wrong. Getting a large group of unanimous witnesses in these circumstances is unlikely, according to the laws of probability, said Professor Derek Abbott, a probability expert at the University of Adelaide in Australia and co-author on the study, in a prepared statement. It's more likely the system itself is unreliable. It's a really interesting article. It says, for this study, scientists set out to test whether the same rule of disimprovement applies to witnesses testifying in court, specifically in a police lineup. After running a complex mathematical model, they found that three is the magic number for reliable testimony. Up until 3 witnesses have confirmed the identity of a perpetrator, each witness makes it more likely that we've found the guilty party. But after 3 witnesses, that number begins to trail off, and as each successive witness makes the same positive identification, it becomes less and less likely that they're telling the truth. In our scenario, the probability that a suspect is guilty is strong after 3 positive identifications by witnesses, Abbott says. But our tests show that the more positive confirmations you have beyond those 3, the more it erodes our confidence that this is the right person being identified. So, up until 3 people are saying it, it's pretty believable. But any number after 3, and it starts to get a little hazy then. Because we all think differently. We all see things differently. We all have a different perception of events. And you see that a lot, like when you're watching a news story or, they interview several people that saw something and they all recount different events. Anywho, that's a really good article to read. It's on Vocative, which is a science website. And then also found this other thing to be quite interesting. CivilLitigationBrief.com. It says, witnesses so similar, a chart was drawn up. So in the case of Wake versus Johnson, which is a 2015 case, Judge Colander, sitting as a judge of the High Court, heard evidence from members of the claimant's family who gave, quote, supportive evidence. The similarities were so marked that the defendant's counsel actually drew up a graph to show the same phrases being used. And we could do that in this case. It says various family members and friends gave supportive evidence. However, there is a considerable similarity between the terms of much of the evidence of Ethan's parents and supporting family and friends. Mr. McCullough, QC, has prepared a comparison in tabular form that sets out these similarities, and I reproduce that in this judgment. So, here's the chart. And it's got statements across the top. And what each witness has said. And if you notice, let me see if I can get my little marker out. I probably can't. Anywho, if you look at the high temperature line 2, notice that it was mentioned throughout. I'm so sorry about my throat clearing. I've been sick. Line 4 there, crying and screaming, crying and screaming, crying and screaming, crying and screaming. Number 3, line 3 there, history of severe headaches. Severe headache for 2 days. Intense headache for 2 days. Intense headache for 2 days. Line 6, unable to drink very much. Unable to drink. Not drinking. Not drinking. It's very, very fishy. Very, very fishy. And that's what I'm saying in regards to this. It's just... there was another one on here. I was going to tell you about. Let me find it. When witnesses agree 100%, they're probably wrong. It says, let's face it, there's something inherently fishy about a panel of witnesses who recall the exact same series of events. Humans are imperfect. We see things differently, forget minor details, and recount stories in odd orders. So when witnesses' accounts don't differ by healthy margins, actually a sign something might be wrong. We just read that. This article draws upon an article by the Royal Society, too good to be true when overwhelming evidence fails to convince. This is in the case of Abbott v. RCI Europe. The judge was hearing an action by timeshare owners alleging breach of contract by a membership company. The claim was dismissed on the grounds that the claimants failed to prove causation or damages. The quote says, I also note that the claimant's second witness statements were largely identical. See the comments of Chadwick J. and Smith Newcourt Securities Limited versus Grimgow or Vickers Asset Management Limited, 1992 case. The Court of Appeals decision was reversed by the House of Lords and Chadwick J.'s decision reinstated, but there was no criticism of Chadwick J.'s judgment on this point by the Court of Appeal in any event. And I wanted to go back down a little further. There was, here it is. This is where 2 witness statements, which were identical. I read something on this just a second ago. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling so fast. Okay, it is amazing we both wrote 12 pages and 95% is the same, but I'm not surprised. I am not surprised that we wrote similar sort of statements because we did the deal together. I would, I suppose, have found it very surprising if Mr. Lewis had written a totally different type of statement. And this is from the judge. In my judgment, Mr. Lewis and Mr. Abrahams each sought deliberately to mislead the jury in the criminal proceedings as to the true process by which their Criminal Justice Act statements were prepared. The true position did not emerge until full discovery was made, belatedly, in the course of the trial of the civil action in this court. I do not accept their explanations given in this court that they had forgotten at the time when they gave evidence in January 1991. I'm sorry. the circumstances in which their Justice Act statements have been prepared 1 year earlier. In these circumstances, it would, in my view, be unsafe to make a finding of dishonesty against Mr. Roberts on the unsupported evidence of Mr. Lewis and Mr. Abrahams. And it's it's just showing that it's not, it looks really bad in court when someone shows up and all of the witnesses said the exact same thing. And these are little minor things. Like, why would these people be looking at what this one specific person... I mean, do they know how much Irene drank? Do they know how much Monifa drank? Shemaya? Could they recall those amounts? Could they recall how they were acting? Why Kenneka? There's a reason why. You know what I mean? And it just looks really, really suspicious. And any good police officer would have questioned them on other people at that party and what they drank. And even if they did, they should have mentioned that in their report. And I don't think they did. So, anywho, it's definitely something suspicious. And it's something that is very well known in the criminal justice platform, that your witnesses should not have the same statement. That is a big fat red flag. Anywho, I just wanted to let you guys know that was on my mind. So I hope you guys have a good night.